Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining today's webinar. My name is Sal Marquez, and we'll get started here shortly. Give it a few more minutes, let a few more people join. Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining today's webinar. My name is Sal Marquez, and today we're going to be discussing quiet sound music practice rooms. Start off by saying thank you guys again for joining, and we'll go through this. We're going to be discussing a couple of features in regards to music practice rooms. We'll get more in detail as we move down the slides. I will point out some features and some of the pictures as we go through them, just so you can get an idea of what I'm discussing as we go through some of these slides further down in the webinar. So this is a perfect example on how most of our enclosures or most of the music practice room enclosures are set up. We're in different sequences in the sense of how we test them. This room here, as you can see, they're side by side, and they're a few inches apart. This, I believe, is about 4 inches apart, which is kind of the maximum width spacing that they seem to be putting these rooms in, and still be able to get a pretty high acoustic rating. And again, we'll get more into the details of that further as we get down. A couple nice features is our doors with our full glass, some silencers, and as you can see kind of through the top here, which can be covered with some flashing or fascia pieces, which we'll get into further down. You can see some of our pre-wired plug-and-play system. So we're going to go over a couple of features and some of the different orientations about the music practice rooms. Number one is we're going to talk about our single wall music highest performance in the market music practice room. We'll talk a little bit about our quiet swing door system. We'll get into the isolated floor system, our UL plug-and-play system, and then wall and ceiling, how these rooms are self-supporting. Recessed ceiling mounted dimmable LED lights, we'll get into those, and then the airflow silencers, the integrated in the panels, and as we saw a slide before this, silencers on our rooftop. Custom sizes and standard at standard prices. The closure places discussed some fascia trim to cover up some of the unwanted spacing or not anything that the customer does not want to see. Some type of spacing. Sometimes it's a wiring for the plug-and-play system. Single wall construction. Typically, all of our rooms are absorptive. We can make them solid face if needed. It just depends on the necessity and the rating that the type of instruments or the ratings that they're going to be wanting to get on some of these rooms. So they are definitely available not only in perforated absorptive panels, they're also available in solid panels, and all we would do is add an absorptive ceiling panel, which it already comes with the perforated ceiling panel, but we would leave that feature alone so you still have absorption within the room itself. On our walls, in their music practice rooms, we use a heavy gauge steel, typically at least a minimum of 16 gauge. And what that does is it eliminates a lot of the oil canning that may be caused when the panel is being manufactured. It also removes all of the internal stiffeners to keep that nice architectural look throughout the enclosure itself. These rooms do come in 6 standard colors that we offer. We can accommodate any other color. The only stipulation would be sometimes lead times or price may be a factor. But for the most part, we definitely can accommodate any color that they may be looking for. As you can see here, this kind of in this slide here gives you a nice feature, a nice side view of our door with our low profile frame, window frame, full light. And then kind of in the background here, you can see that there's a full light with some nice lighting through the main street. We did about 15 of these units in this property, and they were all facing the main road, which would then receive a lot of natural light. So the customer wanted us to take full advantage. They wanted to take full advantage of that and make sure that we had some of that natural light coming in from the outside glass wall into these enclosures. So we were able to take advantage of that with our acoustic windows. Some of the performance levels, as discussed earlier. So our modular enclosure system, or music practice room system, in order to get the ratings that we get to, we go to our SPC54 quiet mod panel, and we jump into our SPC52 quiet swing door to maintain the performance required by a music practice room. Again, as discussed earlier in a slide, the 1 inch apart, how these rooms are tested. Rooms are tested, can be tested and have been tested by us at 1 inch apart and have gotten a nice NIC rating of 58, and they've also been tested at 4 inches apart, and we've gotten a nice NIC rating of 69. We have also tested these rooms in a foot apart, which has gotten us up in the 75s or higher 70s, but that's data we do not show just because it's never commonly asked for, in the sense of the spacing of the enclosure being that far apart. Quiet swing door. Our quiet swing door, standard SPC52 door, is a double magnetic seal door. Noise Barriers does also offer an easy open seal. Those that we typically would put those in areas like schools or anywhere where they may have some ADA requirements to help ease the opening force of the door itself to meet those ADA requirements. It's a compression seal. It is tested and has a higher rating than 52. So it has been tested and proven with our SPC52 door. So the SPC52 doors come in a variety of window vision lights. This is our full light vision. We also offer an ADA light and a half light. Just depends on the requirements of the customer. Sometimes we can also provide them flush. Sometimes the customers or end user may not want any windows in the doors. They may just want a small window. So we definitely can accommodate that through the submittal approval process. We also offer a line of hardware selections for our SPC52. More commonly used is our Schlage, Von Duprin, Corbin Russwin, and sometimes Best, depending on the application. We can also use some of the hardware selected by an end user, the architect. We just have to make sure that they're able to accommodate the thickness of the door. Our hardware for these specific type of doors it is a custom. They have a custom extensions offsets, so we just want to verify with the supplier or the end user that they are supplying the correct hardware that will end up fitting in these doors. Here we have a few details showing a couple of examples. As you can see here in jam detail, the double magnetic seal configuration is discussed. The bottom seal, a nice bottom compression seal view with the sill plate. All of our acoustic doors automatically are quoted with a 1/4 inch aluminum sill plate, and that is to help reduce wear and tear on the bottom seal to allow it to last a longer time, and also give it a nice straight and flush sealing area. This detail here is shown as it's wrapping it is a split frame design. All of our doors are split frame design, so they don't necessarily have to be installed at the time that the enclosure is being installed, if it's wrapping the panel wall or if it's wrapping a wall in general. If it is not wrapping the wall and it's sitting inside of the opening, then in our enclosures, we do recommend that the door is installed prior to the ceiling being put in, or the ceiling will need to come off to be installed at a later time. This next slide here is the isolated floor system. The isolated floor system comes in a very heavy gauge surface. As you can see in detail AA, it gives you a good idea. The plate that we use is anywhere from 3/16 to 1/4 inch plate to allow the flooring systems that you put in it to sit nice and level and not have any flex in them. You can notice on section AA the connecting points. Once these panels are made in sections, 2 separate sections. This was as an example for a room that was 9 by 9. We did not make a 9-foot panel by 9 foot just because of the sheer weight of the panel itself. So we want to try to make as many smaller panels for the floor as possible to try to keep them from being too heavy and not being able to bring them to the location of the installation. A lot of times these enclosures may be installed on the 3rd floor of a building that may need to come through an elevator. They may need to be brought up a flight of stairs down into a basement. So we want to try to accommodate as much as possible the smaller panels to help out the installation process and make sure that nothing gets damaged in the process of these panels being brought into place. The isolated rail is an engineered rail. It's got isolation pucks in it. Depending on the size of the room, it will determine the amount of pucks that are put in place and also the amount of rails that are put in place. And that's to help again with the floor feeling spongy or any acoustic transmission loss coming through the floor. We want to make sure that we isolate as much as possible and not create any bridges. We're able to also typically when a room is built in a pit, we're able to supply this for ADA requirements. They may pour a pit. If for whatever reason they misppour the pit in the process of the submittals, or even at the point where we're ready to ship the product and we find out that the pit was poured incorrectly, we are able to accommodate that by providing more of a low profile floor. You don't get a less rating from that floor. We change out the insulation material to accommodate the smaller low profile floor, and that is just to adjust for the pit that was poured instead of having to chisel out the concrete or re-pour a new pit. So the floor, again, going back to the flooring and the hard surface, a lot of the times we do supply carpeting. We have 3 different styles of carpet. It may not be the carpet that the architect or end user may want. They're able to utilize their own carpet or any type of flooring. I've seen people put in hardwood flooring, pergo flooring, and their own carpet. And what that does is that floor gives it a nice rugged, rough system, so it has no flex. These rooms can also sit on the directly to the floor, the host room floor. This is just a feature that we use quite a bit if it's near a busy intersection, a busy road, or if it's on the 1st, the 2nd, 3rd, or 4th floor to keep any noise from coming in through the bottom of these floors. Electrical plug-and-play system. So we're going to get into a little bit of this. Plug-and-play system, nice pre-wired system that allows you to not have an electrician come to the site. Everything is pretty much pre-wired in the factory tested. So the plug-and-play system is a UL certified system. Pretty simple to use. It's definitely user-friendly. Something that, like I said, everything is pre-wired in the factory. Typically, when it comes to music practice room, we like to propose at least 3 quad outlets, one on either side, one on either wall in the back wall. The locations of these outlets can be determined by the end user. They may want all three of the outlets on one wall. They may want an outlet in the front of the enclosure. They may want two quad outlets. So it all depends on where they're using what they're using these what type of equipment they may have in here that will require more than 4 outlets in one wall. So throughout the submittal process, that can be determined and can be addressed at that point where those are located or they are required. In the front entryway, typically we put a nice dimmable switch, an outlet. We have a fan control switch, and we'll get more into the fans and in that type of system. But typically the outlet is placed right on the inside of the doorway. Customers have requested on the outside, and that can be accommodated. Again, it just depends on where the customer would like some of these features, and we can definitely accommodate them through the submittal process. And like I said before, all of these are pre-wired. Everything's pre-tested in the factory. Once the unit's pre-wired, all of it, the entire unit's fit up in place to make sure that everything is working with the switch and the dimmer. Parts are also labeled for ease of installation. So once you receive these parts in the field, they do have whips coming out through each of the panels that have a outlet. Those are all mated and labeled to make sure that once you receive it, again, you don't have to have an electrician on site to walk through how to install this system. So we're going to get into some of the features of the self-supporting room. These rooms are self-supporting, and they can actually be self-supporting up to 12 to 14 feet in span. The way that is achieved is we have a floor channel that gets put in place and anchored to either our floor panels or either the host room floor. Once those anchors are set in place, all of the floor channel, it creates a square or a rectangle depending on the size of the room. Once that's set in place, the wall panels are then installed. The corner joiners are put in place. None of those face pieces have any screws put on them. Once the roof panel is put in place, as you can see here on the wall section detail at the roof, you notice that there's a screw driven right from the roof panel into the wall panel channel. That then holds the room entirely together. Then those are just flashed off by a nice finished trim piece that goes on all 4 corners. Once that's in place, that room will not move, will not go anywhere, or not tip over. They become a self-supporting room. So that gives it a nice feature where there's no mechanical screws on any of the surfaces on the inside or outside face of the room, which keeps that nice architectural look for you. LED lighting. So one of the cool features about our music practice rooms is, depending on the size of the room, it'll determine the amount of LED lights that you are going to need or require. That's all that's all engineered through the submittal process, and they will, depending on the square footage, they'll implement the amount of lights to make sure that you have full coverage in these enclosures. The system, the LED lights actually is integrated and works with our UL plug-and-play system. So once they are also fitted in the factory, pre-tested to make sure that they function properly. Once they're pre-tested, they're wired, they're fully wired, and it comes to the field with a plug-in section through the roof panel. Simple installation again, no electrician required. The LED light system is dimmable, which is a really nice feature. Some people like to play in practice or play in dimmer rooms. They like to set the tone, which is really nice. A really nice feature that is available. The LED light system that we provide is a low heat, just like any other LED system. It's a very low heat system that helps keep the room at a comfortable temperature for the performer. We want to make sure that these lights aren't overwhelming or overpowering as they're sitting, the person practicing or performing in the room becomes uncomfortable. Ventilation system. We have a few ways that we supply our ventilation system. One of the most common ways that we and a lot of this has to do with some restrictions. You may have a ceiling restriction, so the height of the host room may be only a specific height, and your customer or the end user may want to take full advantage of that internal height of the host room to maximize the height of the actual music practice room. So when we do run into something like that we have some interferences in the ceiling, we are able to do an integrated silencer airflow system panel. It's about 7 to 8 inches thick, and what happens is all of the internals of the panel are then created to have a ventilation system tunnel to allow air to come in and out of the enclosure. We also have the rooftop. Now, once this panel is put in place, we do supply an 8 or 10 inch collar, which then the host room ventilation system can connect right to that. One of the nice features, so the air conditioning system can be controlled by the host room. We also have a standalone system, which is, if you look at roof plan here, it's separate fans. Depending on the size of the room, this one only required 2 fans. Depending on the size of the room, it may require up to 4 fans, 3 to 4 fans. So we have done that in the past as well, and it does maintain a very cool temperature. It's air flows in and air comes out, keeping that movement of air through the enclosure itself. If the host room system is put in place and there's still noise coming through, for some reason or other, the ventilation system is too noisy, we like I showed you in the first slide, there was also a silencer that is able to be attached prior to being attached to our room, and that's typically 9 times out of 10, just with the panel itself, is sufficient to hold that acoustic value and keep all the noise transitioning from the HVAC system into the enclosure. And these fans are operated by the switch just right in front of the doorway. Again, it's very simple. Walk in, turn the switch on, your fans are running. You won't hear the fans. You can actually put a piece of paper to the roof panel. I've done this myself, and it will suck the paper right to the ceiling. The fans are pretty powerful, and they definitely serve the purpose that we want them to serve and keep that airflow moving. Custom sizes and a couple of features. The rooms are designed to fit in different locations, different host rooms. We can accommodate different sizes. Again, depending on the needs from the client, the needs from the end user, we can definitely accommodate those. The rooms can also be designed to provide a nice architectural room look. As an example here in this picture, we've got some rooms that are facing each other, some rooms that are offset, so it's not just a continuous blank wall across the entire floor. They wanted some of these rooms to sit proud of the opening, and again, it all depends on the client. Another cool feature is we are able to powder coat the doors a different color than the actual enclosure, just to give it that nice offset tone. So again, you're not looking to just have a single solid color that's selected by the client. Full glass feature is really nice as well. As you can see here, it gives it a nice look all across. Some people may not want a full glass just because people don't like to be watched while they're performing. So that can definitely be a flush door. It can be a small ADA light. It depends on the end user, but we can definitely accommodate those features. Again, to touch on the colors, we do offer 6 standard colors, but we are able to match or complement some of the colors selected by the client. The only thing to keep in mind is that may cause a longer lead time and a price increase. We did talk also about some closure trim plates. So you can see here in the picture, the way that these were closed off, to the ceiling, so they couldn't see any of the wiring, any of the cable, any of the insulation. We were able to supply some flashing panels to cover up and make it have that nice architectural look all the way across. We can do that in the corners. We can do that from the host room to the music practice room, kind of a nice vertical flashing piece. And then we can do this as well in the headers, as you can see here, to close off anything that is behind that or above that enclosure. So that's all I have for today. I want to thank you guys again for joining today's webinar. I know your guys' time is, you guys are busy, time's important. If there are any questions, I will hang around and answer those as they come in. But I do appreciate you guys coming in and joining me for this webinar today.